And my panel here, we are discussing that speech by Donald Trump, just trying to see what a Trump presidency would mean for Americans and the rest of the world. We were here, we listened to the speech, Dr. Kambona.
Yes.
If there's something that stands out is his disgruntlement towards the previous governments that have been there, and everything he's said seems to be tarnishing what the previous governments have been doing, including the Obama administration. Is he bringing anything different?
I think that is well put, spot on, because the speech, of course, he's not a good orator. And so the speech is almost like numbered and structured in such a way that you get every point of what the previous administration did as not having been, either done correctly or was not the right thing to do. And I think the American democracy has always wanted to build on whatever, the past or previous administrations have done, change whatever needs to be changed, but build on that. But from what I got from the speech, it is like, this is, of course, Donald Trump is not a politician by his very background and business background. But I think the presidency of America is the most political job on earth. And if I may quote one of my friends here. And therefore, you cannot divorce yourself from the fact that, this is going to be building on what there are people in Congress who have honed their political lives on whatever some of the things he was talking about. And they cannot just let it be like that. So he will have to find, I know, just ending, there's going to be a give and take in this administration, but more so, it is business unusual, and how we structure that business unusual, especially how he works with the politicians, he's really going to have to do that as he learns his ropes as he goes on with his job.
Kioko, you're a policy analyst, but you've dealt with these things for a very long time, and from the speech, some of the things, some of the things he's talking about definitely is doing away with some of the policies. Look at the Obama administration. Even during his campaign, he's talking about. All right, I'll get back to that. Currently happening on air, what we're seeing, we're showing you is President Barack Obama leaving the venue. Now as an American citizen and not as a president or a former president now. And definitely we are showing you pictures of President Barack Obama with the former First Lady, Michelle Obama, leaving the area. Let's just go back there and listen in for a bit. Exit Barack Obama, enter Donald J. Trump. I was coming to you with a very important question on the policies, but I would really like to engage Tom on this because he is an American. What does this mean for you? How do you feel right now at this point in time as an American?
How many hours do we have to just answer that question? Of course, I am a registered Democrat. I wasn't terribly happy with Hillary Clinton's candidacy, but politics is about choices, limited choices. But in a time like this, and I think generally, I think the fact that I've lived in Kenya now longer than I've lived in the U.S. in my life, and other countries as well, I try as much as I can to keep my sort of thoughts in the box of a political scientist that I try to be, to understand what's the relationship between changes that have taken place in American society and its relationship with the rest of the world, and how that influences, if not actually determines, the political outcome of policies and elections. And I just want to make one comment with regard to that. You know, there's so many ironies here, but one of them is that among all developed countries, the proportion of taxes that are collected by the U.S. government is the smallest. We also give the smallest proportion in foreign aid, a proportion of our GDP. In a way, America is, if not the greatest, among the greatest examples of free market capitalism, which is not just national, but global capitalism. And Donald Trump is an example of that with his worldwide investments. And yet, the party that he now represents as president is the one that has used fear, if not demonization, of government, with the impact over the last 3-4 decades, if not longer, going back to the New Deal in the 1940s after the Great Depression from 1929, has used that, again, to demonize the role of the state in addressing the kinds of needs of the people that President Trump now says he's going to address. I mean, look at the Chinese model. The reason that China is outcompeting the U.S. in global investment is because of all these state import-export banks and so on that are all propped up, if not run directly, by the Chinese state. Even Canada has a much more inclusive health system, medical insurance system, than we do, because people don't have this view of government as evil or as a threat. And so, as I say, it's ironic that if you went through President Trump's speech and looked at all the ills he's going to cure, starting with jobs, they're mainly because the U.S. government has not been proactive enough in developing infrastructure, even giving support to job retraining, in support to higher and technical education, and so on and so forth, so that, you know, Americans have suffered these losses that now he has reaped the benefits of. So how he is going to, as I was saying earlier, deal with the anathema within his own Republican Party for an actively involved state, a government, to deal with these problems when half, if not more than half of the Republican Party is based on, we want lower taxes, we want to balance the budget, we don't want the government doing anything except fighting terrorism and running a post office or whatever the, you know, the bare essentials minimum are. That's right, minimal. So he's put himself in an absolute contradiction
with this party.
So whether I'm a Democrat or a Republican, just from the political science point of view, this will be one of the most fascinating periods in American history to look at over the next few months, if not years.
All right, Tom. Kioko, what happens to Obama's policies now?
No, first, before we even get back to the Obama's policy,
quickly.
is to understand that Trump demonizes politicians. So he's coming to the White House with an approach of it's either black or white. You're either good or bad. The
no
element of gray is not there.
That's right.
Now, majority of policies that it's never black or white. It must be on extreme matters that you say it's either my way or the highway. Otherwise, it's a question of compromise. Now, will this presidency attempt to compromise on core issues, or what will it do? And the policies that are enacted in terms of addressing the national concerns of Americans, how do they relate with the international interest of America?
That's right.
How do you take it to Africa, for example? How do you take it to Israel and the Middle East approach? Because here you've said this is the approach we are taking as Americans. How do we relate with it? I think he will have an inherent conflict between what he's spoken, what he practices at individual level, and what the office of the presidency of America expects of him. Now, today, what we've witnessed is with the exit of Obama is that the campaign rhetoric is over. What you asked for, you've been given.
Maybe over, maybe not.
The campaign rhetoric is over on his part. Now he's walked into Capitol House, he's going into White House, he's the president.
Correct.
Now, whatever you've told us, try to implement it within the confines of our democracy, which is based more on compromise than on extremities.
I was just saying that even as we now in the panel must start dealing with Trump, exit 44, enter 45.
Enter 45.
So at this point in time, we will have to the reality is here. All that we have been talking about, Trump cannot do this, he may want to do that. But I think that I could take Kenya, for example. We must now have very clear policies towards the U.S. so that if it is AGOA, if it is a trade agreement, then we must also be very clear if it is support for, or we are working on a trade deal, so that we also, Trump knows that this is the way the world works. Globalization is here. If you want coffee, you are not just going to have Starbucks take all our coffee at this. No, these are our conditions for it. I know we may not have the economic strength to do that, but it is a wake-up call for us now to start saying, okay, let's act as for instance, as East African community and say a market of 140 million people is saying this is what we want to deal with you on. So I think it is important that it is business as unusual, but let's now start changing our tact too.
Wow. What a way to finish. We'll have to wrap it up. Gentlemen, I'm so sorry. We don't have so much time. Thank you very much. I would love that we continue with this conversation.
Have us back in 100 days.
Definitely.
We'll
In 100 days, we will be taking a look at whether Trump has done things he's promised or whether the rain started beating him somewhere in there. But we wish him all the best regardless. All right, Dr. Ken Kambona, international governance expert, thank you for coming. And Joseph Kioko, public policy analyst, as well as Tom Wolf, researcher.
We'll do a poll and see what Kenyans think about what this means for them.
You should. Thank you very much for coming in. Wrap it up on that note, but definitely we will be continuing with this conversation on Friday briefing as Betty Kialo prepares to bring you the day's news. So don't go too far. This is KTN News. We continue with our coverage on the same. And of course, we leave you with more details, pictures on the happenings at the White House and Capitol Hill. Don't go too far. My name is Akisa Wandera.